The sand in the training courtyard of the Red Keep still smelled of blood when the sun rose the morning after the duel. Oberyn Martell, Prince of Dorne, the Red Viper, lover of life and wielder of rage older than his daughters, was carried to a silk-draped litter, breathing shallowly through cracked lips. He had won, but victory tasted of iron and dust. The mountain lay rotting in the city's potter's field, headless, the thick stump of his neck stuffed with quicklime. Even the silent sisters refused to handle so cursed a corpse. Yet murmurs of poisoned spears slithered through taverns as surely as the reek of the Blackwater. Some whispered the Red Viper must die tonight, before his blade bled the realm itself. But Oberyn would not die, not yet. Maester Franken, recalled from Dragonstone under grand haste, restitched the prince's ruptured calf, packed ground willow bark into the wound, and marveled at how fiercely the Dornishman clung to the waking world. In fevered half-dreams, Oberyn spoke his sister Elaya's name as though it were a prayer and a threat alike. Tyrion Lannister, once condemned, sent wine of myrrh and a cautious note of thanks. He said nothing of the mountain's final scream, "Elia of Dorne, Tywin gave the order," but the words had already scattered like wildfire sparks on a dry night. Across the castle, Jaime Lannister could feel walls closing around him as surely as the panes of gilded glass inside the Sept's great rose window. His sister's fury was all daggers and slammed doors, Joffrey's memory weaponized, Tommen's safety invoked, Myrcella's marriage contract wielded like a sword against the air itself. Cersei would not weep where eyes might see, so she clawed at power with bloodied nails instead. She demanded the small council suppress the Dornishman's treasonous lies, and ordered Ser Meryn to silence every singer foolish enough to rhyme brother and lover in the same verse. Yet the song had already begun. Deep in the Red Keep's bowels, Varys moved without hurry, his soft slippers brushing ancient murals of kings long turned to dust. Whispers rode the air here better than ravens. He knew how the tale would grow. Oberyn Martell, champion of the downtrodden, had pried truth from a giant's throat and shattered a crown of lies. A realm hungry for scandal would feast upon hints of bastardry. A realm weary of Lannister gold would drink Dornish wine. Varys wondered which rumor would bloom first, that Stannis Baratheon's letters were bird truth after all, or that Prince Doran himself had orchestrated the duel to avenge Elia and unseat a boy king spawned of sin. Either could topple a throne built of swords and fear. Tyrion, free but not yet pardoned, stood in the Tower of the Hand's abandoned solar, surveying the city that had nearly consumed him. A single drop of sunlight flickered on the Blackwater's sluggish tide, turning the river briefly to molten gold. Then a cloud marched across the sky and the light died. He thought of Shay's perfume and Joffrey's purple lips, of court jesters slain to mask deeper crimes. He thought of his father, still alive. Tywin's pulse beat on inside a softly shuttered chamber. Yet now each heartbeat opened a wider fissure beneath the lion's feet. "Nothing cuts so deep as a spoken secret," Tyrion muttered, "and Oberyn has found the sharpest tongue in Westeros." Far below, in Flea Bottom's warren of crooked lanes, small folk retailed the secret already. The rumor changed with every retelling. Some said the Red Viper had forced Ser Gregor to confess that Cersei bedded Satan himself. Others swore Jaime was the true sire, pointing to the golden heads of the royal children like damning sigils. A few superstitious tongues even claimed the mountain's final breath had carried Elaya's ghost to the king's own bed, whispering doom. Yet the essence remained. The king was no king, the queen no queen, and the throne itself stood on cracked stone. Inside his privy chamber, Tywin Lannister read the first panicked raven from Old Town. The High Septon demanded an inquest. God spare us pious fools, Tywin thought, but he could not ignore scripture when it suited the faith's purposes, and the faith's purse. He summoned Kevin and Grand Maester Pycelle. "Find the tongues, pluck them out, and the lies die silent," he said, voice colder than the frost line creeping toward Winterfell. But Kevin hesitated, and Pycelle mopped sweat from his beard. Neither wished to cross Dorne when its knives were unsheathed. Oberyn's triumph had made him a martyr yet alive, a banner that every enemy of Lannister despots might rally behind. In the cool of Maegor's holdfast, Tommen Baratheon clung to Ser Pounce while Ser Jaime tried to smile and speak of brave knights. But the kinglet's eyes were wide and trembled like small bells. Children sense fault lines long before castles crumble. Tommen did not know the word bastard, but he knew what fear smelled like on his mother's gown. He asked whether Uncle Stannis would come to visit. Jaime had no answer, only a silent prayer that swords might turn to plowshares for once in this cursed kingdom. Yet prayers died young in King's Landing. On the Dornish coast, windy cliffs whipped Prince Doran's banners flat against pink stone. He received the tidings with a long, rattling breath that seemed too frail to carry vengeance. And still his eyes sharpened. A raven from Oberyn himself insisted the time had come. "You have counseled patience long enough, dear brother. Elaya's killers bleed in the sun, and the lion's cubs are exposed. Let us hunt before they scurry for cover." Doran closed his gout-swollen fist around the parchment. His daughter Arianne watched for signs of war flickering behind his calm face. When none came, she retired to plan her own. For in Dorne, even silence wore a dagger. That night, candles guttered in the Tower of the Hand. Tywin stood at his desk arranging parchments like field pieces, every seal a battalion and every signature a vassal. He calculated how many swords each house could raise if the Dornish marched north. He turned to new alliances. Perhaps the Reach might be bribed with grain, perhaps the Vale coerced by gold. But in every column the same red figure reappeared. The price of rumor, incalculable. How could one measure the cost of whispering mothers or disloyal septons? He felt, for the first time in years, the chill of numbers that refused to add. Outside Baelor's September, faith militant hopefuls knelt with torches, sermonizing that righteous flame would reveal true kings as pure gold and impostors as base lead. The crowd swelled, fed by cityfolk who owed no coin to Lannisters and by ragged sparrows grown bold. A single chant rose, "Bastards must fall." Cersei heard it through shuttered windows and slashed a velvet curtain to ribbons, screaming that the same faith had crowned her boy and could damn itself before damning him. She ordered her kettleblacks to seize the loudest preachers. In midnight cells, men's knuckles burst beneath mailed fists, while silent septas prayed for their souls upstairs. At dawn, Oberyn woke fully, pain a white sun behind his ribs, mind scalded clean. Ellaria, shoulders bare beneath a gauzy robe, poured him iced wine. He swallowed, regarded the linen covering his leg, and asked for a quill. "Will you write a letter to Prince Doran?" she asked. "No," he said, smile thin as a garrote. "To the people. I will tell them who sits upon their throne and why Kingslayers walk free." Ellaria's lips tightened, but she fetched parchment. Ash in the brazier glowed purple as dawn gilded the window bars. Oberyn began. "To the realm of men, great and small, from Oberyn Martell, victor by trial of combat, sworn champion of Tyrion of House Lannister." And so the letter took flight, copied by 1,000 inks, carried by rag sellers, sung by minstrels who set its words to the tune of The Dornishman's Wife. Within the Day Street lads chalked, "N.O. True King," on tavern doors. The gold cloaks scrubbed until their knuckles bled, but every dawn new writing bloomed like red moss. Ser Adam Marbrand urged Tywin to station garrisons at every city gate. Tywin reminded him that fear breeds blades inside walls as well as without. Across Blackwater Bay, ships from the narrow sea sailed under half-reefed canvas, bearing Braavosi envoys with ledger eyes. Iron Bank accounts balanced badly when thrones wobbled. Ser Davos Seaworth, now hand to Stannis Baratheon in exile, saw opportunity in the storms gathering over King's Landing. Letters dipped in pink wax sped to the north, to White Harbor, to Pike, each promising debts repaid once the false lion cubs were struck down. Stannis nodded once, the faintest ghost of satisfaction upon his chiseled face. In Highgarden, Marjorie Tyrell practiced her smile before a bronze mirror, yet lines of worry pinched her mouth's corners. If Joffrey had been untimely and Tommen were proved illegitimate, the crown might seek a fresh rose to mask its thorns, but roses cut too can bleed. She wrote her grandmother, the Queen of Thorns, "We planted seeds in spring. Now thunderstorms uproot our garden." Lady Olenna's reply came swift, Storms nourish as well as destroy. Find higher ground. 3 days after the duel, the small council met amid cloying lavender to mask the stench wafting up from the pour. Tywin presided, jaw set like granite. Cersei stood behind him, hands clenched, refusing a seat. Pycelle shuffled parchments, whispering of plague spreading from the hook. Lord Varys reported 9 rumors of bastardy for each denial. Tyrion, summoned by royal order to face outstanding charges, arrived in a dark doublet sewn with fiery chain links. The Martell colors stitched cunningly beside Lannister red, flame and blood twined. Tywin's eyebrow rose. Tyrion inclined his head, near smirk dancing on his lips. "I come as the victor's witness," he declared. "The duel resolved both my fate and Ser Gregor's guilt. Shall we discuss compensation for wrongful imprisonment?" The chamber erupted. Cersei accused him of conspiring with Oberyn. Pycelle bleated of Queen's honor. Lord Qyburn, invited as Master of Whisperers, for Tywin trusted no eunuch now, suggested subtle remedies for seditious texts. Only when Viscount Merryweather proposed that Tommen submit to the faith for a blessing did Tywin's fist strike the table. "Enough! Words do not unmake a king." He fixed Tyrion with a gaze that might have cracked stone. "But they can kill a realm," Tyrion answered softly, "and words have already escaped their cages." That evening a comet-tailed raven settled on Dragonstone, scratching its shutters until Melisandre untied its thread. She read Oberyn's letter aloud to Stannis by fire's red glow while Davos listened, knuckles white. "False king, false heirs," Stannis repeated, tasting each syllable like wine just soured. He turned to the Shadow Priestess. "Lawler sends omens," she said. "The sword of truth is forged in burning lies." Stannis nodded once. The war, paused but never ended, would march again. In the Wolf's Wood, young Arya Stark practiced needle on a dead oak, wishing trees could scream. She imagined the mountain's confession echoing across the 7 kingdoms, imagined Cersei's face stripped of lies. Perhaps one day she would prick that face herself. Far north at the wall, Jon Snow read the letter beneath flickering torchlight, heart a hammer in his chest. He wondered whether southern squabbles would distract King's Landing from the Night's Watch's dire need. Then he folded the parchment, understanding that every realm fights its own skirmish with darkness, some of shadow, some of secrets. Back in King's Landing, the sun slipped behind Visenya's hill as Tywin Lannister stood on the ramparts, looking south toward Dorne. He smelled cinders on the wind and knew they came not from burnt brush but from burnt certainties. His house had slain the Red Viper's sister. Now the Red Viper's words threatened to slay his house in turn. Below, the city hummed like a hive kicked open. He closed his eyes, counting allies left. A wary Tyrell rose, a bloodied Faith, a Kingsguard brother torn by love. Numbers dwindled. He had once declaimed that a lion does not concern himself with the opinion of sheep, yet sheep could stampede and trample even lions in their panic. Outside the Tower of the Hand, 2 hooded figures waited in moonlight, one slim, one stooped. Varys emerged from shadow first. Then Tyrion stepped forward, candle stub flickering. "My lord father," Tyrion said to the knight, "believes he can cage rumor, but rumor is a many-headed beast. Shall we see which head bites first?" Varys smiled, a serpent-smooth curve. "One pushes the cart, the other greases the wheel," he whispered. "Together, perhaps, we avoid being crushed beneath it." They turned to watch the rising sparks of lanterns along the street of silk, each light a whispered tale being born. In a narrow cell off Qyburn's laboratory, the head of Gregor Clegane floated in dreamless stasis, pickled in bizarre black oils. Qyburn muttered to it as though it might answer. "If your tongue names the queen a whore, shall I slice it free and gift it to her?" The head said nothing, yet the alchemist believed silence spoke volumes. Evidence preserved, terror embalmed. He drafted letters to maesters reluctant to join his experiments, promising secrets of life wrested from death itself. He would need allies when the old order broke. Atop the walls, Jaime found Cersei poised like a poised dagger, pale hair whipping in the breeze. She told him Tommen would not kneel before the High Septon, that she would rather burn the September than see her son called bastard. Jaime placed a hand on her arm, but she shook him off. "If I burn, you burn beside me," she warned. He remembered a boy falling from a tower, a desperate push to protect their love. He wondered whether that push now returned, swollen monstrous, to cast them from their own heights. In the quiet of the gods' wood behind the Red Keep, seldom visited, Oberyn eased himself onto a bench carved with forgotten sigils. The air smelled of pine and wet earth, a Dornish exile in green disguise. Tyrion approached, limping slightly from a night spent pacing. The two men sat in hush that felt almost holy. "I will topple their lies," Oberyn said, "and I will not be stopped." Tyrion sipped wine. "Then let me teach you the game," he replied. "For every piece you move has a blade at both ends." Oberyn's smile was salt. "In Dorne we dance with blades." And the dance began. The first sword fell not in King's Landing but in the Riverlands, where Ser Lancel Lannister rode home from the Trident, wounded in faith as much as flesh. He encountered small folk who spat at his lion crest and called him the Queen's cunt-born cousin. One threw a rotten turnip. Lancel drew his sword but could not swing. Shame bent his arm. He turned back, seeking solace in holy work instead of war. His road would soon intersect the High Sparrow's path, and another spark would join the blaze. In Sunspear, Oberyn Martell received her father's summons at last. She was to ride to King's Landing at a measured pace, bearing gifts of gold, silk, and sweet Dornish wine, and a sealed letter whose wax impressed the sun and spear only. She did not know the letter promised Tommen's hand to her cousin Sarella should the boy prove true, nor did she know her father meant the letter as bait, peace to cover knives. She marched anyway, dreaming of courts where dragons of rumor devoured lions whole. Beyond the sea narrow, Peter Baelish smiled in the eyrie, for chaos was rising, and chaos was a ladder he had climbed before. He drafted messages to the City Watch promising new gold, and to the Faith promising old loyalties. Littlefinger always wagered on every side of a coin, certain he would catch it whichever face fell upward. Back at the Red Keep, a single candle dripped wax on the map table in the small council chamber, the light dimming around rough-carved rivers. Tywin studied reports. Gold shipments delayed by raiders emboldened by unrest. Blackfire pretenders stirring in the free cities. Whispers of a Targaryen girl across the sea. Each threat demanded coins, men, or both. And still, in every margin, Oberyn's letter burned. When the candle died, Tywin finally sealed a raven to Casterly Rock. Summon every sworn sword. Send them east. Secure the King's Road. No rumor must pass. But rumors ride wind, not roads. On the fourth sunrise, the High Septon proclaimed a week of prayer and fasting for the purity of the crown. A procession wound through the city, septas keening hymns while barefoot sparrows beat drums of shepherd hide. At its head marched Septon Maribald, bellowing that kings who begot bastards defiled the seven themselves. Gold cloaks barred the street. The crowd surged. Stones flew. A dull blade slashed a horse. By dusk 8 were dead and the gutter ran pink. The mountain's blood had birthed new rivers. Inside the castle, Tommen sobbed when told of the riot. Cersei promised him it was the work of traitors and faithless dogs. But children doubt what mothers cannot hide. That night, the boy king dreamt of a throne that swallowed him whole. Jaime watched the torches of the mob from a rampart and remembered the Mad King's wildfire. Remembered how crowds howled outside the Red Keep then too. He asked himself whether history wrote its tragedies in circles, each turn of the wheel crushing new innocence beneath. In the yard below, Brienne of Tarth sparred alone, practicing strokes meant to protect queens who might not deserve saving. Jaime thought of oaths, and of debts that never settle. On the edge of sleep, Oberyn listened to bells toll for the dead of the riot. He whispered to Illyria, "They ring for Tywin's reign." She traced the scars on his chest like constellations. "You gamble with storms," she murmured. "Let them break," he replied. "Only broken kings bleed truth." Morning of the 5th day dawned bruised purple. A raven from Old Town arrived. the High Septon summoned a great council to judge the claims of legitimacy. No such council had met since the Blackfyre Rebellion. Tywin's fist crushed the parchment. Cersei hurled a flagon at the wall, scarlet wine splattering down the stones like fresh gore. Tyrion, reading his own copy by candlelight, laughed until tears blurred ink. Who would have thought, he mused, that the Dornish prince would prick the lion so perfectly? But even Oberyn felt a tremor of uncertainty, for great councils breed long knives and longer memories. He ordered new armor of crimson sandsteel forged by Dornish smiths camped outside the city. Each plate etched with a sunburst would gleam as he rode to speak before lords and septons alike. He composed his speech in whispers, tasting every word as if it were his final lover's kiss. Thus ended the first 5 days after the mountain's fall. 5 days in which rumor grew talons and faith drew swords. 5 days in which a viper's victory uncoiled ancient hatred beneath a throne of swords. The realm held its breath, balanced on a spear point of truth, awaiting the next drop of blood to tip it into war or rebirth. The dawn of the 6th day broke as a bruised smear above the Blackwater, the river glimmering like a blade left too long to rust. A hush clung to King's Landing, the kind that settles before gallows are built. Gulls wheeled above the rotting hulks at the fish market, their shrieks echoing across a city that had not yet dared to breathe. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister stood dressed for war, though no banners hung and no drums beat. A breastplate of red gold rested upon a cloak the color of dried blood, polished to catch the first rays of sunrise. He studied his likeness in a silvered glass. An old lion, glared back, mane thinned by summonses unanswered, scars carved by numbers that refused obedience. He turned from the mirror and strode toward a map strewn with stones. Jade for Tyrell's, tiger eye for Martell's, onyx for his own. Each stone marked a castle, a river crossing, a pass that must not fall. Yet the space around King's Landing lay littered with tiny red garnets. Rumors, intangible and innumerable, surrounding the capital like gnats around a corpse. At the same hour, Oberyn Martell limped through the Godswood in moccasins of soft sand-colored leather, refusing a cane despite the maester's counsel. A scarlet kiss of blood had seeped through the fresh bandage atop his calf, but he paid it no mind. The leaves overhead whispered in tongues unknown to Dornish ears. Storms talk here, lightning gossiping with moss. Oberyn rested a hand upon the pale trunk of a heart tree, its face both mournful and sly. "You saw it all, didn't you?" he murmured to the carved visage. "You watched my sister beg mercy beneath a monster's fist. Now you will watch her vengeance ripen." The weirwood answered only in the sigh of needles brushing needles. A thread of wind teased dark ringlets across Oberyn's brow. He smiled, half promise, half threat, then turned back toward the Red Keep, cloak of deep orange fanning behind him like wildfire. Tyrion met him near the base of the tower stair, a parchment clenched between 2 fingers. "The River Lords stir," he announced without greeting. "Lord Blackwood has written a poem about bastard kings. 7 verses. It rhymes Baratheon with aberration, and Septon wishes blessing upon your victory in every sept from Gulltown to Fair Isle." Oberyn cocked a brow. If verses won wars, half this realm would be crows picking corpses. Tyrion's grin was crooked as a broken spur. "Ah, but crows can strip a giant faster than steel if you give them time enough." He nodded to the parchment. "Your letter birthed a nest of them. Tywin's men scour the docks to burn copies, but the docks hold more ink than any scribe's table. You've made words into daggers. Be careful they do not cut your own throat." Oberyn shrugged. "A snake's fangs curve inward. They bite hardest when dragged out." The two shared a silent laugh, half admiration, half foreboding, before parting along corridors that smelled of dust and old wars. By midday the Red Keep hummed with a new invasion. Ravens. Black wings beat against shutters as if the castle itself had sprouted claws. Each bird bore a seal, each seal its own omens. From the Vale came word that Bronze Yohn Royce would attend the Great Council with 500 knights in tow, to uphold the old laws before gods and men. From the Reach, Mace Tyrell pledged 10,000 bushels of grain for the city's winter stores, a generous gift laden with a single condition. Ser Loras must sit on the panel judging legitimacy. And from Sunspear rode the news that Oberyn Martell's caravan had crossed the Mander, spreading tapestries on the riverbanks so bright they looked aflame. They carried casks of Dornish red spiced with peppers and cloves, jewels strung on chains of black gold, oranges packed in snow harvested from the Dawn Mountains, gifts fit for a coronation or a funeral. In Flea Bottom's tangle of alleyways, the gifts were gossip. Children played stabbing games with sticks, shouting that one was the Viper, one the Mountain, one the Lion's Bastard King. A cry of bastard now drew as many jeers as Kingslayer once had. The gold cloaks tried to still the ruckus with gauntlets and boots, yet every crack of truncheon begot 2 more whispers. At dusk, 5 officers found their own cloaks hung headless from the gallows tree near Cobbler's Square. A chalk scrawl beneath read, "Illegitimate justice for an illegitimate crown." The tree's bark drank the shadows of twilight and seemed to grin. Within Maegor's holdfast, Cersei paced Tommen's bedchamber like a tigress in too small a cage. Her son slept fitfully, Ser Pounce curled against his throat. Cersei brushed curls of wheat gold from the boy's brow and felt a shudder of dread no wine could drown. She had ordered barrels of wildfire moved beneath Baelor's September. 1 spark and the faith would burn in emerald hell, but pyromancers whispered of unstable charges, of flames that would not obey. She ordered Qyburn to quicken his work upon Ser Gregor's remains. "Give me a champion the world has never seen," she demanded, "and I will parade him through the streets until every traitor pisses himself." Qyburn nodded, eyes gleaming shark silver in torchlight. "I shall give you a knight who knows no fear, no pain, and no mercy." Cersei heard only the promise. She did not ponder the price. 2 floors below, in a stone nursery once meant for dragon hatchlings, Jaime Lannister stood before Brienne of Tarth, swords crossed. They moved without practiced shields, without armor, sweat shining on forearms. Jaime's left hand grasped a light parrying blade, his right sleeve pinned empty against his chest, a silent reminder. Brienne's greatsword traced slow circles, as if measuring the air for lies. Their steel kissed, parted, kissed again. "You guard a queen who may not be a queen," Brienne said through clenched teeth. Jaime's riposte was late. The edge of Oathkeeper nicked his cheek. Blood beaded. "And you protect a realm that may not wish protecting," he answered. Their swords clashed thrice more. Sparks bloomed bright against the gloom. At last Jaime stepped back, chest heaving. "If I cannot save those I love," he murmured, "perhaps I can save those I wronged." Brienne lowered her sword, eyes blue as dawn. "Then let us pray you choose wisely whom to save." Outside the city walls, bronze bells rang over gilded tents, the Martell encampment. Arianne sat within a pavilion of sunrise silk, studying the courtiers who flocked like moths to fresh flame. She wore a gown of burnt orange slit to bare sun-brown calves, a necklace of opals the color of drowned skies. Ser Demon Sand, the bastard of God's grace, stood at her right hand, his spear but planted upon a carpet woven with galaxies of thread. "They come sniffing for alliances," Arianne said, lips curving, "and we shall sell them whispers, for whispers cost us nothing." She dipped a quill and scrawled ciphered notes, each destined for a different house. One to Hightower promising trade, one to Blackwood promising vengeance for ravens slain, one to Tully offering Dornish spears should River unrise. Demon watched with something like affection. "Be careful," he warned, "else your spiders weave ropes to bind your wrists." Arianne's smile deepened. "A rope can pull down a lion as quick as a mastiff, if looped just right." 7 leagues south, in a brothel outside Duskendale, Varys met with 2 bards whose lutes bore strings soaked in Dornish wine. He slid jeweled brooches across a table sticky with mead. "A new song," he whispered, "of queens gilded by sin and princes born of twinned lions." The bard's eyes glimmered. "Make it catchy," Varys advised, "so even children hum it." Coins clinked like small bells. In the corner, a washerwoman who was no washerwoman at all recorded each word on thin vellum. Her report would ride by fast horse to Riverrun before dawn. Riverrun's master of ravens, in turn, would send black wings north and east, scattering lyrics like plague. On Dragonstone that same night, Stannis Baratheon stood upon a parapet, salt wine stinging nostrils as breakers shattered far below. Melisandre's crimson robes snapped in the wind behind him, her hair a living flame. "The Lord of Light rides the breath of truth," she sang above the roar. "Now truth itself has come to your banner." Stannis's mouth was a flint, striking no sparks. "Truth alone wins no battles, woman. I need men." Davos Seaworth arrived breathless with fresh tidings. For pirate captains from Lys had agreed to raid Lannisport's harbor in exchange for casks of Stormlander oak. Stannis gave a single nod, dismissing him. Melisandre stepped closer, skin glowing as though lit from within. "When the bastard crown falls," she whispered, "the realm shall call a king of true blood." Stannis's jaw tightened. "True blood burns red like all, yet mine will not warm if I freeze waiting." He gave orders for sails trimmed and oars set. The Fury would slip anchor come next tide. In Old Town, the Citadel's bells tolled a summons not heard in 2 centuries. Maesters in gray, in brown, in black hurried along echoing corridors to draft scrolls for a great council. Instructions to harbor masters, protocols for verifying claims, lists of lords bound by oath to attend. Some argued the council must meet in Old Town under the Faith's gaze. Others insisted on King's Landing lest Tywin marshal armies to bar the way. Archmaester Bennifer proposed they convene at Harrenhal, neutral ground, if haunted, but Lord Hightower threatened to close his ports to any maester who dared suggest ghosts rule schedules. In the end, letters flew naming Riverrun as host, its halls wide and its lord a captive whose absence guaranteed fairness. Of course, nobody asked the Frey's garrison there what they preferred. But scrolls make promises swords must keep. By the 7th dawn, wildfire fumes drifted through the city's eastern quarter, the Alchemists' Guild testing new brews. Small folk coughed green vapor and swore demons walked the smoke. The pyromancers cared little. Each flask sold to Cersei bought them license to pursue darker alchemies. Beneath their red brick halls, kettles simmered with stranger stuff, black water that ate iron, blue oils that hissed in moonlight. One pyromancer etched a lion devoured by a snake upon a copper still and laughed until the echoes curdled. That same morning, word arrived from the Arbor. Lord Paxter Redwine's fleet would sail north to safeguard trade. 80 war dramens sheathed in oak and bronze. Marjorie Tyrell sat at breakfast as her father read the news. Honey dripped from figs onto lace gloves. Trade, she mused, or throne? Her grandmother snorted. Both, child. Your father never met a crown he could not barter for wine. Marjorie folded a silk napkin. "If Tommen falls," she said lightly, "the realm will need a new queen." Olenna's eyes glittered like unsheathed needles. "And a queen needs witnesses. See that the faith remembers your innocence when bastards are counted." North of the neck, Sansa Stark read a tattered copy of Oberyn's letter, smuggled across fingers of shadow. A vow of truth written by the man who had once laughed with her at court. She traced the Martell seal and thought of Tyrion, thought of kindness found amid terror. She wondered if the Lion's dwarf would survive the Lion's fall. In the Vale, Peter Baelish read the same letter and kissed it, certain he tasted chaos on the parchment itself. Back in King's Landing, Tywin convened a council of war behind doors barred by 4 steel bolts. Ser Adam Marbrand, Kevin Lannister, Qyburn, Pycelle, and Jaime stood before him. Tywin unfurled a fresh map. "We strike first," he declared. "Cut the head from the viper and his venom leaks useless into sand." Kevin frowned. "You would kill Oberyn within these walls? The Dornish will roast us in the sun." Tywin's gaze was molten gold. "Better roasted than bled by rumor." He pointed to Qyburn. "Your whispers say the prince leaves the castle nightly for the Godswood?" Qyburn inclined his head. "Always with one bodyguard, no more. The hour before dawn." Jaime's brows knit. He opened his mouth, thinking to object. Then he shut it. Words fail when loyalty has lost its compass. Tywin rolled a cylindrical scroll across the table toward Qyburn. See it done. The parchment seal depicted a lion's claw crushing a snake. That night, a half-moon drifted behind wisps. The gods would slept beneath gray gauze. Oberyn entered alone, having commanded his spear of the morning to remain by the gate. He wished to walk unencumbered, to breathe the scent of pines and old sorrow. He withdrew a small phial from his sleeve, milk of the poppy steeped with dawnflower petals. A sip eased pain without dulling wit. He gazed upon the heart tree once more, its tears frozen as red sap. "Elia," he whispered, "it will soon be done." Footsteps rustled. Oberyn turned, spears but sweeping into a ready guard. A figure emerged, slender, cloaked, face hidden behind a white porcelain mask. No sigil adorned the cloak, no blade glinted, only a subtle bulge beneath cloth where steel might rest. "Are you ghost or man?" Oberyn asked, voice soft as desert sand. The mask inclined, lips unmoving. A whisper slid from the stillness. "Vala Morgulus." Oberyn's eyes narrowed. Faceless, he smiled, a cobra between breaths. "Come then, try your art upon a viper." The assassin stepped forward, twin daggers flashing. Moonlight sliced across steel like desire. Oberyn danced. Despite the wound, despite the leaden pull of healing flesh, his spear sketched arcs of living flame, would clacked against iron. A dagger skittered from the assassin's grasp, spinning into ferns. The second found purchase, slashing Oberyn's forearm, opening red mouths along tanned skin. Pain flared. Oberyn bared teeth. He twisted, drove the butt of his spear into the mask's jaw. Porcelain cracked. A muffled cry. "Female?" The assassin reeled. Oberyn did not press but spoke. "Tell Tywin Lannister his coins by corpses, not silence." He struck again, once, precise. The assassin folded, blood blossoming dark in moss. Oberyn knelt, turned the broken mask. A girl's face stared up, more child than killer. Her eyes wide, coloring bleeding from lips. He cursed in soft Valyrian. "Go," he told her, voice low. "Tell your masters the red viper will not die quietly." But the girl's pulse fluttered once and fled. In the hush that followed, heartwood leaves rustled like applause. Oberyn wiped blade upon the ground. Each breath burned. He staggered from the godswood and into torchlight where Tyrion waited, rings on fingers glinting. "I heard steel," Tyrion whispered. Oberyn shrugged, wincing. "Only the start of the symphony." Tyrion led him back inside before more notes could sound. When news of the failed assassination reached Tywin, he snapped a quill. Ink spattered maps like spilled viscera. "No more shades in the dark," he growled. "We bring him into the daylight and break him there." He ordered Jaime to parade Gregor's skull upon a pike, claiming the mountain's confession false. Proof that no living tongue could now be cross-examined. Jaime refused. Silence crackled. Tywin's voice descended to cold ash. "You forget your place." Jaime met his gaze. "I remember every place I've stood, father. I stood before a mad king and slew him. I stand before you now. Command me again, and learn whether lions slay their own." Tywin's mouth clenched, but the words died unborn. By the 8th day, black sails touched at Blackwater Rush, ships flying a stag crowned in fire. King Stannis had landed at Maidenpool with 4,000 men and more rumored on the roads behind. His banners read, "One true king." The small folk of Crackclaw Point cheered. Few remembered loyalty to lions when grains ran thin and rumor promised plenty. Tywin dispatched the city watch to fortify Rosby, but half the cloaks deserted after the first mile, vanishing into fog with armor sold for bread. Inside the September of Baelor, the High Septon unveiled a letter of summons. Every great lord must appear before the Great Council, to swear under the Seven that their chosen king held rightful blood. He pressed a signet of crystal into hot red wax that glittered like fresh wound. Septons fanned copies across the realm. 7 days hence, lords must assemble at Riverrun. 7 days. An eye blink for armies, eternity for rumor. Cersei smashed a goblet when she heard. "They mock us," she hissed. "They gather in Tully halls while the crown sits here." She turned to Qyburn. "Ready your champion. We ride for Riverrun at once." Qyburn bowed, lips thin. "The champion is not yet awakened, Grace." Cersei's hand cracked across his cheek. "Awaken him," she said, "or I will awaken your corpse in his stead." Word of her slap crossed the capital faster than ravens could fly. Small folk drank to the day the queen's hand tasted blood like theirs. The faith hailed it as penance. The brothels hailed it as sport. In the Martell camp, Arryn laughed until tears wet her coal. "When lions devour their own pride, jackals dine richly," she told Daemon. She sent envoys to Littlefinger, to Varys, to the Tyrell legate, each bearing a single Dornish orange and a whisper, "Choose the sun, not the shadow." Meanwhile, Oberyn penned another letter in wine-stained ink, this one addressed to Lords of Honor and Subjects of Conscience. He enclosed a copy of Stannis' lineage and Elaya's last testament, smuggled from Dragonstone by sailors sworn into Melisandre's shadow. The letter accused Tywin of ordering child murder, Jaime of regicide, Cersei of incest, and the faith of aiding false coronations. He sealed it with black wax bearing the sigil of House Martell inverted, sun setting beneath rubble, and sent a raven to every corner of the realm, to every step where Sellswords might read, to every dockside where broken men might dream. Ravens left by score. King's Landing skies were soon aflutter with wings that carried doom. On the 9th day, the tides turned. In the street of flour sacks, a baker refused to kneel when gold cloaks demanded loyalty to Tommen. They beat him to pulp. By nightfall, 20,000 loaves baked from his ovens were tossed in protest into the river, bread floating like bloated corpses. The next dawn, a riot erupted at the Iron Gate. Sparrows, bakers, dyers, and cobblers stormed the toll house, chanting "Bread for bastards." Blades drew, the air filled with flour dust. A torch fell. Explosions rocked the cobbles as stray wildfire vials ignited a storehouse seized from pyromancers. Ash snowed upon the crowd. When the smoke cleared, the toll house was a charred skeleton, its beams like ribs of a giant cattle carcass, and the gold cloak commander lay impaled upon his own pike. The city now smelled of burnt wheat more than of blood. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin's nostrils flared at the smoke. He donned his helm, a snarling lion's face, though no enemy yet crossed the threshold. "Enough," he barked to Kevin. "Send ravens to every bannerman. We ride at first light. We will reach Riverrun before the council and remind those lords whose coin feeds them." Kevin bowed, yet he wondered whether coin alone still ruled hearts. That night, Varys slipped into Oberyn's chamber. A single lamp lit the prince's silhouette, torso lean, scars a constellation. Varys spoke softly. "Your blade has opened veins across this kingdom. Blood flows, but blood is ever thirsty. How far must it spill?" Oberyn's eyes held fire unquenched. "Until truth drowns lies." Varys sighed. "Truth and lies both drown men. I would keep some afloat." He laid a parchment on the table. A list of children hidden within the Red Keep, wards and pages, squires' sons and kitchen girls. When fire comes, they will not know why. Oberyn's jaw tightened. He reached into a pouch, produced a small crimson stone shaped like a tear. "This belonged to my sister," he said. "Give it to the queen when her children are judged. Let her know Elaya's blood condemns hers." Varys shook his head. "Elaya's blood condemns no child." Oberyn looked away. "Then let the mother feel what the sister felt." When Varys left, he carried the ruby nonetheless, heavy as guilt. On the 10th dawn, the bells of the Great September tolled thrice. King Tommen would ride to Riverrun under guard of the Kingsguard, the Queen, and Lord Tywin himself. The royal procession would depart at dusk, beneath banners of Lannister crimson and Baratheon gold. Crowds lined the streets in sullen silence. Tommen rode a white palfrey, legs trembling. Cersei rode beside, armored in gold filigreed plate, the emeralds of wildfire set in her gorget. Jaime held the reins of a warhorse barbed in pale steel. Qyburn rode a black courser, a great wicker crate on wheels trailing behind, draped in plush crimson cloth. Within the crate, something immense shifted, chains clanking. Oberyn watched from a balcony, Ilaria at his side. "They bring a monster on a leash," she whispered. Oberyn's mouth quirked. Leashes snap. He turned. Tyrion approached in riding leathers, bearing a scroll from the High Septon's hand. "Summons for you too, Viper." Tyrion's tone wrapped humor around edge. "You and I ride north tonight, with 100 sellswords sworn to see us safely to Riverrun." Varys secured the coin. Oberyn nodded. "And Dorne sends 300 of its own, under Lady Enwam." He picked up his spear, polished and wicked. "Let us see whose truth arrives first." As the sun bled toward the horizon, twin processions crept from the city, one blazing with gold, one cloaked in sunset hues. Between them lay miles of cracked road and mud, thickets of rumor, ambush, betrayal. Ravens winged overhead like dark prophecy. Far behind, King's Landing smoked. Bakeries charred, tollhouses gutted, brothels shuddered beneath threat of faith raids, pyromancers stirring vats that hissed green malevolence. The city's heartbeat sputtered but did not cease. Hope lived there still, small and defiant, in mothers humming new songs to babes who would never know a lion's lullaby. On the King's Road's first bend, Tommen looked back at the city that crowned him. Clouds gathered above its towers, purple bruises across gray flesh. The boy felt a tear slip free, unseen beneath his visor. Beside him, Cersei's face might have been wrought of iron. She smelled smoke and future. She would burn worlds before bastardy burned her blood. Ahead, the road stretched long, flanked by fields blackened from autumn harvest. Somewhere down that road waited a hall of stone and water, and within it, words armed sharper than swords. Night fell swift, cloaking both parties. Torches bobbed like fireflies. In the Dornish host, Oberyn rode at the vanguard, pain a steady drum against muscle. Tyrion rode a shaggy chestnut pony, cloak snapping like a banner of defiance. He glanced sidelong at his companion. 5 days ago, the mountain fell, he said. In 5 more, perhaps a kingdom. Oberyn's eyes gleamed. Then let us ride faster, my friend. I mean to see the sunrise paint Lannister blood across the sky. Behind them, a musician plucked his strings and sang low. CSS. The viper danced, the mountain died. A secret bled, a lion lied. Now truth rides north on serpent wings, to sting the false and crown the kings. The words drifted across the dark, carried by wind toward the golden banners ahead, toward the smoking city behind, toward every hush where fear listens. And so the road filled with music, with hoofbeats, with the promise of reckoning. And somewhere in the wicker crate rolling beside Queen Cersei, chains rattled as a giant corpse dreamed of life restored, waiting for the council where monsters would testify and crowns would tremble. The realm lay poised on the cusp of dawn, not yet broken, not yet reborn, held in tension by 2 riders and the wounds of 1 fallen giant. And the gods, old and new, watched with eyes of stone, waiting to learn what shapes men's choices would carve into the brittle clay of destiny. The night pressed velvet dark around the twin columns of riders as they advanced north. Down the eastern verge of the King's Road, torches gutter flickered along the royal train. Tywin, Cersei, Tommen, the crate that clanked with Qyburn's secret, and the standard of the lion rippled above plate and gold. 2 miles west, through orchards left skeletal by autumn, crept the Dornish host, bright as coals under canvas awnings. Between them stretched farmland that had not yet chosen its master. Clouds trailed across a half-moon like tattered banners of beaten armies. Somewhere an owl hooted. Somewhere a deserter's corpse swung creaking from an elm. The scent of hearth fires reached the road in fitful gusts, mingling with horse sweat, oiled leather, and the copper tang of mistrust. Oberyn rode at an even pace, the gold ferrules of his spear rattling against a saddle trunk. His wound throbbed with the beat of his stallion's hooves, but the poppy kept the pain at the edge of thought. Ahead marched a flying wedge of spearmen, Lady Enwam at point, eyes palest amber above the crimson veil that hid her lower face. Behind them rolled wagons heavy with casks of wine and barrels of oranges meant for bribery or poison, as need decreed. Tyrion clopped at Oberyn's stirrup, pony lopsided under the dwarf's compact weight. "You feel the wind?" Tyrion asked. "It smells of storm. It smells of change," Tyrion corrected, wiping condensation from his lip with a gloved thumb. "Storms pass. Change lingers." Oberyn's answering smile was a bare flash of teeth. "Then let it linger long enough to rot the lion's mane." Ahead, the road bent around a low rise. A lantern flashed 3 times, Dornish scouts signaling an obstruction. Oberyn flicked 2 fingers. The column slowed to a whisper. When they crested the hill, they found timbers felled across the highway, nails hammered through to skewer hooves. Atop the wreck sat a parchment, pinned by a dagger with a pommel shaped like a lion's paw. Oberyn dismounted, tugged the blade free, and read by torchlight. "Step no farther, Viper. The council will judge your slanders in due course. Turn south or meet the fate you gave the mountain."
"No sigil?"
Tyrion asked. "None," Oberyn said, though he recognized the script, Qyburn's angular hand. He planted the spear in the earth, stared a heartbeat, then spat on the page. "Clear the road." Spearmen pried planks away, tossing them to ditches. Nails clinked like malicious laughter. In 200 heartbeats, the obstruction lay dismantled. In another 100, the Dornish train slipped past. On the far side of the rise, the lantern flashed again. 5 quick beams. Arianne's outriders meeting them. She galloped forward astride a pale sandsteed, braids snapping like whips of ink against copper skin. Oberyn greeted her with a clasped forearm. "You move slower than rumor, uncle," she chided. "You outran rumor yourself, niece. Where is Demon? Riding your flank with a dozen bows. A message. The royal party has pitched camp by the Trident's Ford. They've doubled sentries and chained the crate to iron pitons." "Good," Oberyn said. "Let them think themselves safe." He swung back into the saddle. 3 more days to Riverrun. Plenty of nights for poems to sharpen swords. They marched until first false light silvered the horizon. Then camp was struck in a hollow screened by alders where a spring bubbled cold between rocks. Fires glimmered beneath cauldrons of pepper broth, spicing the dark with red steam. Tyrion shared wine with Oberyn beside a low brazier of glowing coals. "I cannot decide," Tyrion mused, "whether this council will crown you a hero or a corpse. Why not both?" Oberyn drank deep, winced as liquid fire met stomach. "Martells trace our glory through tombs as much as triumphs. And Lannisters mine the same tunnels." Tyrion's grin was thin. "Did I ever mention the joke my brother once told me? A Lannister always pays his debts, unless he's dead, in which case he pays them with other men's lives." Oberyn clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll see who pays soon enough." At the royal encampment by the ford, Cersei greeted dawn with a goblet of fortified hippocras. Beneath the awning outside her pavilion, she watched Qyburn pry a peephole through the crate's slats. Inside, something vast stirred, exhaling a muffled growl. The alchemist wiped perspiration from a bald pate. "He grows stronger by the hour, your grace." "Will he ride?" she demanded. "In Riverrun's hall, he will stand tall as any king." Qyburn's eyes gleamed. "A miracle of science and devotion." She forced a smile. "Make certain the miracle obeys." Jaime appeared, helm beneath one arm. He caught the lingering wine on her breath and frowned. "We should move. Scouts report the Dornish 2 leagues west." "So close." Cersei's spine stiffened. "They hound us like flies." "It is a road, not your personal corridor," Jaime said. He studied her face, found the lines of sleepless nights. "If we push hard, we overtake the Blackfish's old watchtower by dusk." She nodded, then glanced at the crate. "And he?" Jaime's gaze followed hers. "If that thing breaks its chains, every child within a league will die of fright. Keep it shuttered." Cersei's lips thinned. "When the faith brands my son, a bastard, I'll need more than your disapproval to silence them." Jaime touched the pommel of Oathkeeper, sighed. "You might start with truth." Her slap cracked like frost on steel. Jaime did not flinch. He only met her eyes, gray meeting green, until hers slid aside. High above forest roads, ravens coursed north bearing Oberyn's second letter. One winged shadow crossed the vale and alighted upon a rookery tower of the Eyrie. Sweetrobin's maester unrolled the scroll before Lord Protector Baelish at breakfast. Peter traced the seal, sun beneath rubble, and read quickly, mouth quirking. "Elaine," he called. Sansa entered, hair dyed dark but eyes bright with flickers of home. "Hear what flames the Dornish stoke now." He recited lines accusing Tywin of plotting children's murder, naming the High Septon complicit, promising rewards to any lord who would cast off a false crown. Sansa listened, heart punching ribs. "Do you believe it?" Peter folded the letter. "Believe? My dear, belief is coin. Spend it wisely." He set quill to parchment, drafting replies to Lords Grafton and Corbray, offering them double tariffs should they blockade the royal column at Maidenpool's Pass. "A pinch of inconvenience," he murmured, "to salt the lion's wounds." Sansa stood at the window, mind swirling. Somewhere beyond snowy peaks rode the girl she had once been, hand eager to hold a prince's, heart ripe for songs. No more. She touched the cold stone sill. Prince Oberyn's words felt hotter than summer. Illegitimate. False. Lies stripped bare. She half smiled, imagining Cersei's face when the council echoed that charge. "Burn them," she whispered. 2 days south of Riverrun, the King's Road narrowed through Hag's Mire, where bog gases rose in spectral wisps and reeds bent whispering secrets to slow water. Tywin ordered the column to form 2 files, outriders fanning ahead. Yet when the vanguard reached a stone bridge arched over black muck, they found it half collapsed. An explosion had bitten away the central span. A tattered banner flapped from a pike, a crowned stag roaring in red paint. "Stannis." Ser Adam's horse reared. Archers scanned treelines. No enemy showed, only the echo of frogs. Tywin cursed softly. "We ford upstream. Wainwrights, rig rafts for the wagons." Hours bled as men cut saplings, bound ropes, cursed the mire-sucking boots. Twilight approached before the last cart, Qyburn's crate, bobbed across crude pontoons to the far bank. As chains drew taut to drag it forward, the crate convulsed. Nails squealed, a seam split, a vast mailed fist punched through, gauntlet black as old blood. Men scrambled. Tywin barked for crossbows. Cersei galloped up screaming to keep the archers back. Qyburn shouted incantations, arching a rod of twisted copper. Crackling purple veins of wildfire danced along its length, licked the fist, searing it shut. The hand withdrew, wood splintering as it yanked back. Iron bars screeched against new rivets and went still. Qyburn slumped, breath ragged, robes smoking. Silence. Then the crate exhaled, deep, guttural. Tywin watched with eyes like granite cliffs. "Next time it breaks free, let it." He wheeled his destrier. "We are done hiding." The same dusk stained the sky behind Oberyn's host crimson. They reached the ruins of Acorn Hall's burned granaries, torched months earlier by marauders. No roof remained, only low walls blackened like dragon glass. Oberyn chose the grounds rather than the open road, wanting stone at their backs. Fires were kindled in hearths long choked by soot. Tyrion wandered the periphery, wineskin tucked beneath arm. He found Aerion standing in a gap where wall met night, watching embers swirl skyward. "Your father writes he expects lions to charge before we reach Riverrun," she said. "Has he misread Tywin?" "Tywin does nothing rash," Tyrion answered. "Yet he might do something final." He sipped. "He'll seek to crush morale, kill a symbol rather than an army." Her gaze flicked to the largest tent where Oberyn sat with Maester Franken having stitches renewed. "My uncle is half poison, half hope. Which half will father's enemies aim for?" "The heart," Tyrion said. From woods beyond the hall drifted faint notes of song. One of Aerion's sentries returned with news of a small sept hidden in copses not 4 bowshots away. Autumn pilgrimage candles burned upon its sill. No sign of soldiers. Oberyn decided at once. "I will pray there," he said, "though gods seldom answer dragons." Tyrion insisted on escort. Lady Nwym added her spear. Arianne folded arms but acquiesced. The path wound through brambles, leaves whispering beneath cloaks. The sept appeared a squat cube, wooden shingles sagging toward moss. Candles flickered inside. Oberyn pushed the door. The interior smelled of cedar and forgiveness. He strode to the mother's likeness, smooth-carved and faceless, and laid a red pearl at her feet, Elaya's final earring. He whispered something in guttural tongue. Tyrion stood back, uneasy. Shadows danced across the walls. Nwym's spear point traced lazy circles near the rafters. A soft click behind. The door had closed. No wind stirred. Tyrion felt hairs rise even beneath cropped beard. Then floorboards shattered. Figures burst upward, cloaked in mud-smeared leather. Their blades curved Cersei style. Smoke bombs hissed, filling the chapel with biting ash. Tyrion coughed, drawing a dirk. Nwym whirled, skewering one assailant through the eye. Oberyn danced sideways despite his wound, spear haft cracking skull. 6 attackers came like shadows uncoiling. Steel rang against Icon. A blade slashed Oberyn's thigh. He answered with point through clavicle. Tyrion rolled beneath pew, hamstrung a man who toppled shrieking. The smoke thickened, stinging eyes. Another attacker lunged at the prince, too close for spear play. Oberyn dropped the weapon, seized the man's wrist, twisted until bones snapped like dry twigs, then plunged a dagger into his kidney. Blood spattered the mother's robes. When the tumult ended, 7 corpses littered the floor. A single survivor crawled for the door. Nwym pinned him with a boot. Light from his hood revealed a tattoo of chains circling his throat. Oberyn knelt, pressing dagger tip just below the ink. "Who bought your blades?" The man spat, teeth crimson. "Gold has no name. Gold always has a roar." Oberyn hissed, twisting. The man screamed, "Tywin!" A nod, convulsed. Oberyn rose, breathing ragged. "Leave one alive," he told Nwym. "Send him back, tongue intact, to speak of our courtesy." Nwym obliged. She sliced the man's cheek so he would remember Dornish generosity, then marched him through the smoke. Tyrion surveyed carnage. "How many assassins can your courage fend off, Prince?" "As many as Tywin can buy," Oberyn answered. He retrieved the pearl, now stained dark, and placed it in a pouch. "This is no longer about council halls. It is war sworn in quiet places." They limped back to camp beneath a sky that seemed too low, each star a watchful eye. Fires had burned down to sullen coals. Oberyn called his captains, ordered watches doubled, archers on every rise. He drank bitterleaf tea to steal blood, refused the maester's suggestion of sleep. When dawn came, Prince Oberyn looked older, harder, bronze cannon carved from flesh. Dawn of the 11th day saw the twin hosts converge upon Riverrun's fertile plain. The castle's great red stone walls loomed amid encircling rivers, banners of House Frey whipping in brisk currents of wind. Yet on the high keep's southern turret flew another standard, 7-pointed star of the faith. The High Septon had arrived. Tents blossomed across muddy banks like bright mushrooms, Tyrell green, Greyjoy black and gold, Royce bronze disc on brown, Hightower pale white-green spire. Even an errant falcon welcomed under safe conduct. Warily they eyed one another, waiting for the lion and the viper. Tywin reached first. His column of crimson filed along the causeway, drums thundering. Tommen, small atop his destrier, forced his chin high though tears glistened unshed. Cersei rode flanking, golden plate aflame in sunrise. Jaime guided their ranks through parted crowds of lords and knights. Qyburn's crate rumbled behind, tarps stripped away to reveal iron latticework laced with glyphs. Inside, the giant figure sat chained, face hidden by a helm without visor. Blank steel, no eyes, no mouth, yet breath steamed through slits, veiling helm in pale mist. Lords whispered, recoiled. When Tywin dismounted before Riverrun's gatehouse, the Frey steward bowed, offering keys. Tywin declined. "We camp outside," he said. "The king will rest in his own pavilion." Tents of red cloth sprang up in neat square, watch fires at every corner. Gold cloaks patrolled with pikes angled. Not 2 hours later, trumpets called from the western road. Dornish banners shimmered like molten ore. Oberyn's train wound toward the castle, spears glinting, silk pennants snapping. Tyrion rode at his right, Aerion at his left, Lady Enwam behind bearing a white peace banner begrudgingly borrowed. When they drew abreast the main encampment, Oberyn halted. He raised a hand. "Play it," he ordered. A piper lifted his reed, struck a tune, the Dornishman's wife, lilting and bold. Across the plain, soldiers whistled, whooped, stomped boots to the beat. The melody seeped through Tywin's camp like acid rain. Within his command tent, the Lord of Casterly Rock ground teeth until a molar cracked. The Dornish pitched tents of striped orange and wine-dark red along the tumblestone's edge, planting spears in semicircle formation, points outward like a sunburst. Tyrion's banner, crimson broken chain, fluttered at the camp heart, a lone lion among serpents. That evening, Horn summoned every delegation to the hall of the Lord's Mill, a timber-roof structure raised hastily beside the keep for the council's first sitting. Sconces sputtered along walls hung with makeshift tapestries showing the Seven. Beneath them, benches faced a dais where the High Septon sat flanked by Septons in cloth of silver. 2 high tables formed a square around sanded floor. Seats were marked by sigils: stag, lion, rose, sun and spear, fish, falcon, flayed man, kraken, spear tower, flame-kissed heart. Stark and Targaryen seats remained vacant yet ominous. Oberyn entered on Tyrion's arm, limp hidden by a stride of arrogant grace. Murmurs fluttered. He bowed perfunctorily to the Septon, then took the Martell chair. Tywin followed moments later with Cersei and Jaime. Tommen ushered to the Baratheon seat, though the sigil shone freshly painted. Cersei's glare at Oberyn could have cut plate. He merely winked. Lords settled. Hush descended. The High Septon rose, ancient voice reverberant beneath roof beams. "We gather under the Seven's eyes to weigh grievous charges. Let truth guide tongues and gods guide judgment." He lifted a scroll. "First we hear testimony, end the lineage of King Tommen." Cersei stood. "The boy is of my womb, sired by Robert of House Baratheon." She placed a mother's kiss upon Tommen's brow. "His brow bears the crown by blood and by law." Oberyn rose next, spear serving as cane. "The mountain confessed otherwise before whole arenas of witnesses," he said, voice a sonorous bell. He named Jaime Lannister father to the realm's so-called heir. Tywin's fist slammed the table. Gregor Clegane lay dying, raving under poison.
"No confession stands."
Tyrion leaned forward. "Then call forth Ser Jaime, sworn Kingsguard who shares blood with the Queen. Ask him under faith's oath. Truth will out." Jaime's eyes burned into Tyrion, anger mingled with gratitude unspoken. He did not rise. The High Septon cleared throat. "Ser Jaime Lannister, will you swear upon the Seven that you are not father to these children?" Silence. Heartbeats pounded like drums. Cersei's hand closed on Jaime's sleeve. Tears welled. Tywin's gaze dug trenches in his son's armor. Jaime swallowed. Before he could answer, doors banged wide at Hall's rear. Qyburn strode in, robes soot-smudged, leading the giant in iron helm. Clanking chains dragged behind him. Gasps rippled. The High Septon frowned. "What profane creature!" "A witness," Cersei declared, voice echoing. She stepped aside as the giant lumbered forward, every footfall a mini earthquake. Qyburn withdrew a scroll. "The last will of Ser Gregor Clegane, sworn onto parchment before passing. He avers the Queen's virtue and names Prince Oberyn his poisoner." Oberyn laughed, sharp and clear. "Ser Gregor's skull writes wills now? Necromancy makes poor quills." But Qyburn held forth a sealed document stamped with black wax imprinted by Mountain Crest. The Septon accepted, cracked the seal, scanned. His brows furrowed. The hand that wrote this jest cannot be the hand of a man moments from death, nor of a man now headless, Tyrion added dryly. Cersei turned a savage smile on him. You speak as if heads matter to corpses. She gestured to the helmed giant. Questions? Ask him. Sir Robert Strong shall answer. Gasps again. Sir? Yet the knight bowed, steel visor remaining blank. The High Septon hesitated. Remove your helm, sir. Robert Strong did not move. Qyburn shook his head. A vow of silence binds him, your high holiness. He speaks not, yet he obeys. A silent witness then. Oberyn's eyes narrowed. Long as some speak on his behalf? Tywin rose. Enough theatrics. The boy is king. We hold writs from every banner house. We need no confession from dead men nor finger-pointing vipers. The Royce Lord thundered back. A king without true blood is no king. Other lords nodded. Hightower, Mormont, Blackwood. The Tyrell emissary whispered with Lady Olenna, then stood. House Tyrell demands impartial proof, else we break bread with traitors. Tempers flared. Fish banners argued with krakens. Flayed men jeered at flint shields. The High Septon banged his staff until hush reluctantly fell.
Vi adhon till dawn.
All proofs must present then. May the Father judge wisely. Lords filed out murmuring. Tyrion lingered near Oberyn's chair. Tomorrow they will demand more than papers, he said. Then we give them blood, Oberyn answered. Mine if need be. No, Tyrion said, face grave. Tywin means to spill yours tonight. Oberyn's lips curved. Let him try. The night is young. They returned to camp under cloud-choked moonlight. In the Dornish command pavilion, Lady NYM unrolled maps. Arianne recounted scout sightings. Sellswords in Lannister livery approaching from south. Fry crossbowmen posted atop Riverrun's outer wall with orders to shoot any snake crest after dusk. Oberyn listened, fingers drumming the spear shaft. They stoke fear, so we stoke fire. He drafted swift orders. Detachments to harry supply carts. Arrows tipped with scorpion oil to sow panic. We show them the cost of truth denied. Tyrion watched lanternlight flicker across the prince's angular features, saw lines of fatigue etched deep. Beware you do not become the monster they paint, he warned. Monsters rule this realm already, Oberyn said. I merely unmask them. Thunder rolled distant. Lamps wavered. Night settled heavy, pregnant with knives. Across the river, Tywin conferred with Kevan, Jaime, and Lord Randall Tarley beside a field table cluttered by courier feathers. Reports lay grim. Stannis' vanguard had seized Maidenpool, Braavosi galleys blockaded the gullet, and Bolton forces harried Lannister supply wagons near Harrenhal. Tywin rubbed the cracked molar with his tongue. We cannot fight the realm on three fronts. We break the Viper tomorrow. Randall Tarley suggested a pre-dawn raid upon the Dornish wine wagons. Poison the casks. Blame it upon Martell folly. Kevan frowned. Jaime shook his head. Tywin waved the plan away.
No.
We execute the prince before witness. The boy king will demand it by law of slander. Cersei entered, cloak dripping. The skies had begun to weep. Ser Robert stands ready. Her eyes glittered feverish. Jaime tried to speak, but she swept past. Tomorrow the Viper dies. Jaime caught her wrist. And if truth dies with him? Her laugh was brittle. Truth bent a knee to power long ago. Thunder split the night, hammering rivers into white-crested fury. In his pavilion, Oberyn cleaned the blade of his spear with oil smelling of lemon and basil. Rain drummed canvas overhead, each drop a ticking clock. Ilaria slipped inside, soaked cloak clinging, curls plastered to cheekbones. She knelt, took his wounded leg in gentle hands, changed dressing with silent care. At last she spoke. If dawn takes you, what words shall I bear Dorne? That Elia sleeps easier, he whispered. She kissed the scar at his thigh, tasting iron, tears, sweat. Outside thunder rolled again, closer. In the royal camp, Tommen huddled beneath quilts while Cersei stroked his hair, chanting lullabies older than dragons. The boy's voice trembled. "Will they take my crown?" "No one can," she lied. Lightning flashed, illuminating fear wide in her own eyes. Rain hammered tents until riverbanks groaned. Water pooled between camps, moats of mud. The gods, old and new, seemed to wash the field for morning's judgment. Mid-storm, Jaime slipped from the Lannister lines, cloak drawn. He crossed a plank bridge half submerged, wading knee-deep through reeds to the Martell perimeter. Guards lowered spears until moonlight caught Gold Hand. They hesitated. Jaime raised his empty palm. "I come alone." Inside Oberyn's tent, lamp flame fluttered when the Kingslayer entered. Illyria retreated warily. Jaime and Oberyn regarded one another across small space. Rain pelted canvas. "You saved my brother once," Jaime began. "I saved myself," Oberyn countered. "Save him again." Jaime's jaw clenched. "Withdraw your claim. Go south. I will see Gregor's skull delivered to Sunspear. Tywin's gold to pay reparations for Elia. Let Tommen reign. He is innocent." "Innocent blood sits ill on lies," Oberyn said. He stood, balancing spear. "Tell me, Kingslayer, can you swear before gods and men that child is not yours?" Pain flared in Jaime's eyes. He could not speak. "Then I ride to dawn," Oberyn said. "Pray it spares us both." Jaime left, boots squelching. Thunder swallowed his retreat. Morning broke bleak. Low clouds bruised purple. Rain eased to mist. The hall of the Lord's mill filled again, torches reflecting in puddles on plank floor. Lords huddled beneath damp cloaks, expectant. Tywin sat rigid, jaw tight. Cersei beside him, face pale fury. Tommen shivered. Jaime rested hand on hilt. Qyburn's giant loomed behind like a silent tomb. Opposite, Oberyn entered with bandaged leg bared, spear capped in cloth. Tyrion accompanied him, cloak sodden but eyes keen. Arianne and Lady Nym flanked a step behind. The High Septon raised arms. "Let testimony begin." Tywin rose at once. "We present proof of Robert Baratheon's paternity." Signed confessions from his squires attesting to bedding the queen at times aligning conception. He gestured. Pycelle tottered forward with scrolls. Lords murmured. Oberyn tapped spear. "Squires can be bought. Blood cannot." He lifted a small wooden box, flipped lid to reveal 3 vials. Maester Franken, summoned from Dragonstone, brings draft that distinguishes Baratheon blood from Lannister. "Let Maester test the boy." Cersei surged upright. "You would cut my son?" "A single drop," Franken said, bowing. He produced silver lancet. Tommen looked to Jaime in panic. Jaime's throat worked. "Do it," he whispered hoarsely. The lancet pricked Tommen's thumb. A bead of crimson welled. Franken dripped it onto a shard of glass etched with runes. He shattered a clay ampoule over it. The mixture fizzed purple, then settled luminous red, hue of autumn maple. Lords leaned forward. Franken frowned. "Baratheon blood should darken to black." Gasped. Cersei staggered. Tywin's chair creaked as his fists whitened. Jaime closed eyes. Across the hall, doors burst again. This time Stannis Baratheon strode in, cloak of flaming heart trailing. Behind him marched Davos and rows of spearmen bearing half-racks of black antlers. "The realm has bled long for this lie," Stannis boomed. "Now truth stands armed." He slammed Lightbringer's scabbard on table. "Behold the rightful king." Chaos detonated. Fry crossbow strings twanged from rafters, bolts hissing toward Oberyn and Stannis alike. Dornish guards leapt, raising shields. One quarrel thunked into Tyrell Envoy's neck. Another pierced Pycelle's forearm. Tywin screamed orders. Cersei shrieked for Ser Robert Strong. The giant lumbered forward, snapping chains. Helm raised, revealing horror. Gray flesh sewn tight, eyes glowing unnatural blue. It batted a man aside, crushed another skull beneath gauntlet. Lords scattered. The High Septon fell, trampled. Oberyn whirled, spear parrying bolt aimed at Tyrion. "To me!" he cried. Lady Nym hurled javelin. It shattered on Robert Strong's breastplate with no effect. Stannis drew sword aflame with reflected torchlight, clashed against the undead knight. Sparks rained. Jaime seized Tommen's arm, dragged him beneath overturned bench. Cersei clawed after, dress ripped as she screamed at Strong to protect her. The monster swung quarter-moon arcs, severing air. Stannis ducked, blade shearing rivets. The helm dented but did not breach. Qyburn cackled behind pillar, chanting. A sudden shriek. Aerion toppled, bolt through shoulder. Tyrion sprinted, dragged her behind column. Oberyn's eyes blazed. He hurled spear. It flew straight, unstoppable, shaft whistling. It struck Robert Strong's visor icelet, pierced through, out the back of helm, embedding in cedar post beyond. The giant staggered, roar echoing hollow. But it did not fall. It reached, pulled spear free, black ichor spurting. Thunder shook rafters though skies outside were silent. Wildfire stored beneath floor by Freys ignited. A section of hall exploded, spraying flaming debris. A beam of timber smashed Tywin's table. Fire roared hungry. Smoke churned, chaosing day into night. Stannis barked retreat. His men dragged him clear. Oberyn limped toward Tyrion, hauling wounded Aerion. Lady Nym cut down a Frey archer before bolt could loose. Through smoke they glimpsed Robert Strong stomping toward Cersei and Tommen, shielding them with monstrous bulk. Jaime rose, sword drawn, face streaked soot. He met Oberyn's gaze across inferno. For a heartbeat, lion and viper shared understanding. The real enemy towered between them. Jaime charged, golden hand raised like brass shield. Oberyn, without spear, snatched fallen halberd, followed. Together they struck. Steel ringing, ichor spraying, wildfire sparks leaping around clashing forms. Outside, bells clanged alarm. Camps erupted as soldiers armed, banners falling in rain-wet mud. The great council dissolved into war. Riverrun's ramparts blazed with choral flashes. Tyrell trumpets sounded. Dornish horns replied. Overhead ravens scattered, black confetti against smoke-bruised sky. The tumblestone ran red where bodies clogged its fords. Within the burning hall, pillars collapsed. Robert Strong swung fists like siege rams, shattering benches, walls, men. Jaime ducked under a blow that would cave skull. He thrust Oathkeeper, blade lodging between breastplates. The monster yanked free, sending Jaime sprawling. Oberyn vaulted onto debris heap, launched himself, driving halberd spike downward into gap at armpit. The blade slid deep. The giant bellowed soundless horror and flailed. Cersei screamed. Tywin limped from rubble, blood seeping from scalp. He seized a crossbow discarded by Frey, loaded, aimed at Oberyn's back. Jaime saw, shouted, but his voice drowned in roar of fire. Tywin's finger tightened. Tyrion appeared behind his father, dirk in hand. "No," he whispered. He drove blade into Tywin's hamstring. Tywin crumpled, bolt shattering stone as it flew wide. Father and son locked eyes, betrayal older than either could count. Tywin's mouth formed a word, then smoke swallowed. Oberyn ripped halberd free. Black ichor poured. He swung again, severing one of the monster's arms at elbow. Metal and flesh parted. Steam hissed. Robert Strong staggered, kneeling. Jaime rose beside Oberyn, both weapons raised for final strike. But a thunderclap shook the hall. Wildfire casks ruptured beneath dais. Green flames exploded. Walls buckled. Oberyn felt heat sear beard. Jaime shielded face with golden stump. They dove as roof collapsed, bringing starless sky inside. Amid raining embers, Robert Strong disappeared beneath rubble. Cersei's screams faded behind falling stone. Oberyn crawled, lungs aflame. He found Tyrion dragging Aerion through Gashen wall. Together they stumbled into rain-drenched yard. Bells rang, horns blared, steel clashed in muddy chaos beyond palisades. The realm was aflame, its council ashes. Oberyn spat blood, lifted face to charcoal heavens. "So truth arrives," he rasped. "On wings of fire." Tyrion, coughing, managed a grim smile. "Truth? No, my prince. This is only the prologue. Around them, dawn's first light glimmered through smoke, painting spear points and sword edges bright scarlet. Two armies reshaped lines, banners drenched but unbowed. At their heart limped a viper and a dwarf, alive yet hunted, bearing witness to a kingdom's reckoning still unborn. Above, ravens circled, waiting for the feast the day would bring.